Your middle schooler with ADHD and executive functioning struggles may be going through a really hard time, and as a parent, you may be hoping it's just a phase, that if they just get through it, they will outgrow it and figure out how to navigate the life of a middle schooler. Unfortunately, ADHD and executive functioning struggles are not just a phase. ADHD is actually a developmental condition directly linked with executive functioning skills, which is why, like peanut butter and jelly, you can't talk about one without the other. It's directly tied to things like focus, organization, goal setting, things that are imperative for your middle schooler to have to succeed. And unfortunately, again, if it's left unaddressed, these executive functioning struggles can really spiral into something a lot bigger than it has to be. But I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way for your middle schooler. Today's video, we're gonna dive into why ADHD is not just a phase, why executive functioning struggles are not just a phase, and why the approach of letting them figure it out and hoping they'll grow out of it is not the best way to approach this problem. We're also going to cover how taking action could totally change the trajectory for your middle schooler. Attitude Magazine, which is kind of the gold standard for all things ADHD and executive functioning, refers to sixth grade as the testing ground for executive functioning skills. This is how important these middle school years are for developing executive functioning skills, whether they have ADHD or they don't have officially ADHD, but they're still struggling with executive functioning skills. After all, let's think about it. This is the time where the students go to school. They usually have 5 to 7 classes. So that's 5 to 7 teachers, 5 to 7 different ways to turn in assignments, look for assignments, upload assignments. It is also the time where their social skills get tested, get developed. They start making new friendships, and they're also exposed to a brand new environment. A lot of middle schoolers start off in a brand new campus. And if they're not in a brand new campus, they're at least in a new part of the school with a lot more demands placed on them. So no wonder this is the testing ground for executive functioning skills, right? So middle school can be a challenging time for all students, and especially my friends with ADHD and executive functioning struggles. So let's break down why is hoping that it's just a phase and they'll grow out of it. Why can this be so damaging for your kids? Number one, this is the place where bad habits will fester and grow and multiply like no other. Your middle schooler is out there trying to survive their day, right? And if they have ADHD or executive functioning skills, they're more than likely to figure out a way to navigate the day that isn't the best way for them to compensate. So what happens is they figure out a compensation method and it kind of works for them. So this method will continue to develop, and a lot of times it's not the best way, it's not the most efficient way. For example, we can have a kiddo that is really great at doing things at the very last minute. You know, the last minute project where the whole family has to come on board to help, the last minute homework assignment when they're doing it in the car on the way there. So this usually turns out in one of two ways. They usually end up turning the assignment in, the thing in, and doing pretty good, right? So at the end of the day, you know, if we're just using the grades to measure success, sure, they're doing pretty good, right? Their grades are fine. But looking at the grades doesn't give us a whole profile of the stress it caused your family if you had to be the one to go out to the drugstore to get last minute supplies for the project, or drive across town so they can meet with the group to put the project together. And it also doesn't reflect the stress that it caused your kiddo because they're having to do their homework in the car. There may or may not have been an argument at that moment, because there usually is, as to why leaving things to the last minute. So it doesn't give us the whole profile. The other way this can turn out is the project doesn't get done, it doesn't get completed, and they get a 0. The homework, I'm just not gonna do it. I don't wanna stress out my morning, and it's only one assignment, and the assignment doesn't get done. So as you can see how these habits can snowball into a way to get through their day that's not really sustainable, it's not functionable, and it's not something that they can build upon as they continue their career as a student. So these executive functioning struggles going through middle school they're actually, I'm calling it reverse compounding interest, right? So when our middle schoolers go through their day, it is a beautiful time. Their neurology is changing. They're getting exposed to more responsibilities. They're navigating new social situations. So when they're getting it, they're getting it. And they're figuring it out. They're building good habits. So this is similar to compounding interest, right? The more you put into it, the more you do it, the better you get. The more successful you are as a student, and the better your executive functioning skills are. Reverse compounding interest is like our friend that was doing their homework assignment in the car. They are not only figuring it out and building the good habit of time management, the good habit of organizing, the good habit of starting an assignment, completing an assignment, turning in the assignment. They are actually reinforcing the wrong way to figure things out. That's where I get the reverse compounding interest. And then it's also good to point out that developmental milestones are missed. Just like you want to put your baby on the floor to learn how to crawl and get up on all fours, because that's a beautiful, important developmental milestone. We want our middle schoolers to figure out the 7 teachers, the practices, the new parties, the new friends. We want them to figure it out because that is a huge developmental milestone, and their neurology is preparing them for that. So when we are not there to support our students and scaffold and help them figure it out when they can't, they are not only, kind of having a hard time at the moment, they are missing developmental milestones that they really get during this middle school time period, which are crucial to their success, not only as a student, but as a member of the community, as somebody who's going to participate in a job, when they have to do group projects together, when they have to learn how to navigate high school demands, and looking into the future when they go into college. A lot of the skills they're going to use and practice in college are started to develop during these middle school years. So they're very important. And hoping it's just a phase and hoping they'll figure it out and hoping they'll outgrow it is not the way we need to address this. We need to address this head on with specific strategies that are going to help them. Here is a bonus as to why this time is so important for us to address it and not put it on the back burner and hope it goes away and let them figure it out. You see, our kids that come into this time frame and struggle, many of them will end up getting a diagnosis, right? They may end up having a learning disability. They may end up having a learning disability in reading, in math. They may have a visual perceptual disability. They may have full-on ADHD that they didn't know they had until middle schooler. But my friends that struggle with executive functioning skills that don't, I hate to use the word qualify, but don't qualify, don't check the boxes off to get an official diagnosis, these friends are even further behind than the other friends because there's nothing really on paper. Executive functioning isn't a diagnosis, right? It's just a way that kids go through life, adults go through life, and we're good at some executive functioning skills and we struggle with others, right? But when we don't have an official diagnosis to support that, our kids with executive functioning skills really fly under the radar, and I feel like they're left behind more than any other population because they end up being looked at as like, you could try harder, you're just being lazy, and maybe sometimes even looked at as being disrespectful or not really caring, when if we really step back and look at it through the lens of executive functioning, supporting their executive functioning skills could really support them in a way that changes their trajectory through these crucial years. So for example, let's take little Johnny here as our case study. Let's say little Johnny maybe he was diagnosed with ADHD way back 2nd grade, but he did okay. He was a good student. He still managed to navigate elementary school and did beautifully, right? Now he gets to middle school. We, the adults, parents, teachers, expect him to continue to navigate middle school just like he did elementary school. Comes the first report card, all of a sudden, the grades aren't what they used to be because there are a ton of missing assignments that came out of the blue. So not only were we surprised by the final grades, but little Johnny was kind of embarrassed, confused, and not really sure why, if he'd been such a good student all along, why this new middle school is so dang hard for him. And let's not even mention that he does not want to talk about it with teachers, parents, or anybody else because they're really so embarrassed. And I really see this over and over again with this middle school group. So what happened to little Johnny was, you see that bad habit that we talked about earlier in the video, that this is a time where they develop tons of bad habits. That bad habit of not wanting to write things down, not wanting to use the agenda. Sometimes they don't do it because they never had the practice of using the agenda. Sometimes they don't want to do it because, like I said, remember, we're in a new environment. We've got a bunch of new friends. We're talking to friends. We have better things to do than write in our agenda, right? So we're keeping that all in our head. And that really did work for us well in elementary school, except that now, remember, we've got the 7 teachers, 7 ways of turning things in. I'm in a new campus. My working memory is at full capacity. So that's why this new habit that little Johnny developed left him high and dry. And this has never happened to him before. And honestly, the adults around weren't expecting it to happen before. So there was no way to really prepare him to navigate this challenging time. Now, let's give little Johnny a redo, right? Let's say, because we did know little Johnny was going into an environment that he was going to have 7 teachers, 6 teachers, new school, new friends, tons of distractions for all middle schoolers. Let's say we would have set him up to start with really insisting on he use an agenda. And not just insisting he use an agenda, teach him how to use the agenda, show him how to use the agenda, and then here is the missing link. I want you to come close. Here's the piece that we always forget. We need to build in accountability and scaffolding and support, because little Johnny is not going to want to use that agenda. So accountability from home and or school is the missing link to get this working memory some relief, because we need to put these kind of things on an agenda because our working memory is busy, making plans for the weekend, going to parties, talking to new people in the hallways, right? So we need to offload some of this on our working memory, and an agenda, any kind of agenda. The real trick here is the accountability piece. If you would like for me to do a video on agendas and my thoughts on agenda and what I have seen that works on agenda, leave me a comment below and I'll go ahead and do that next. Another thing we could have done to support little Johnny is, from the beginning of the school year, show him how to check the portal, where you check if you have any assignments. Many kids are just blown away when I go into the portal with them. You know, how's it going? Any missing assignments? No, everything's great. I'm probably gonna get honor roll. And then they go into the portal and they're literally blown away by the fact that they have 5 missing assignments. Wait, but I turned that in. They're genuinely confused, surprised. So if we had already started that approach with little Johnny, he may have not been caught up so off guard when he didn't get the grades he was expecting because he forgot to turn in assignments. Another thing that we could have shown little Johnny, another skill he could have learned had he had some support, was he could have learned the very magical skill of talking to your teacher, right? If he had had an adult, a therapist, a coach, even just to practice with a counselor, what to do when you realize you're missing a homework assignment. Kids are mortified, so embarrassed. They do not want to even look at the teacher in the eyes, because even if they're middle schoolers, they still want to please the adults in the room, and the adults in the room are the teachers, right? So if we would have shown little Johnny, he would have been able to learn the magical skill of writing an email to a teacher. Imagine if at 6th, 7th grade, you learn how to communicate with your teachers, with your bosses. You're so far ahead than most adults. And then we could even have a conversation. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I realized that I didn't do my last 3 book reports. Is there any way I can make up the work? How about for partial credit? Like, they would be able to learn the skill of negotiating, of asking, of being told, well, actually, no, but you can do this assignment instead. Sometimes they just get a flat out no. But again, we're looking at this middle school period as a crucial time for building skills that my friends with executive functioning miss. They just miss it. So one thing you should definitely be on the lookout when you are trying to help my friends with executive functioning and ADHD is there are so many misconceptions on how to actually help them. And this next video here goes right into the common misconceptions when we're trying to help our middle schoolers with executive functioning and ADHD. So make sure you go ahead and watch the next video.